Alright, so let's say we wanted to render out all three. Let me delete this image. Let's go ahead and edit our batch file. So let's go to edit. Alright, there's our cylinder. Let's just add another line. Type in render sphere.mb. And the last one is render square.mb. File save. Now let's just double click, or you can right click and choose open. And it should render out all three of those files, because it'll do each command one after another until there's nothing left to do. So there's our cylinder. There's our sphere. And finally our square. So we just rendered out all three of these files just by using Notepad and saving it as a .bat file. Alright, let's delete these out. Just do one more thing. I'm going to bring back up the command prompt, and I'm going to type in render space -h. That's going to show us what's called flags. So render space -h or -h. Let me expand this so we can see what all it just put there. Alright, I'm looking for where I typed that in, which is right there. Alright, render -h. When I typed that in, it listed a bunch of all these flags. So if you look at here, it says general purpose flags. Scroll down a little more, you'll see more advanced flags. Alright, so what are these? This is a way that you can choose settings for your renderings. For example, let's say that you wanted to save your file as a JPEG. So if we look in this list, you'll see right over here, -OF allows us to change the output image file, the format of our image. So -OF space, and then what we want to change it to. So a string value, just text. String basically means text. Float is a number. Integer is a number. Boolean is basically a number, basically 0 or 1. So to change the image file format, all we need to do is type -OF space and then whatever we want it to be. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's edit our Notepad, our .bat file. Let's just do the cylinder. Alright, so on this line, right in front of cylinder, I'm going to insert -OF space and then what we want it to be. So JPEG, JPG, and then make sure you put another space to separate it from your file name. So all we did was inserted this right there. So over here in this command line you see -OF space and then what we want our image output format to be. So -OF space and then the string, what we want it to be, the text, JPG. So let's go ahead and save this and render it out. And it should save it as a JPEG. There we go. We have a JPEG image now. Alright, so let's delete this. Let's look at another thing. This image right here is 640 by 480. Let's say we wanted to render out 1024 by 1024. So let's delete that. Let's bring our command line back up. So let's see, to change the height and width of our image, our render, let's scroll down here. Alright, here's a -x and then some integer or some number. But -x allows us to set the x resolution of the final image. -y allows us to set the y resolution of the final image. So this is our x and y height and width settings for our rendering. So to change the x, -x and some numbers, let's go ahead and do that. Let's go to edit. Let's insert -x and let's say we want this to be 1024 space, because we want to make sure we separate it from everything else, -y space 1024, then space. So here's our command to adjust the width or X direction of our rendering. There's a command to separate or to adjust the height, the Y direction of our rendering. File, save. Waiting for it to show up here. So now if we look at this, it's a, go to properties, details, there it is. It's a 1024 by 1024 now. Just render it out as 1024 by 1024. So I'm going to delete that. So you can see how these flags are very helpful in determining exactly how you want your renderings to appear. Now you can go inside Maya, you can open up that file and you can set those properties, or you can set it right here in this with these flags. So let's open up our square file here inside Maya. Okay, here's the square cube. Let's do a little animation here. Let's say I'll move the cube over here. Alright, we're adjusting the Z value. So I'm going to change my time slider. We'll just leave it at 24. Alright, so at frame 1, I got my time slider at frame 1. I'm going to right click on, I'm going to make sure Translate Z selected. Right click, key selected. So we just told Maya that at frame 1, we want our cube to be located right there as far as our Translate Z value goes. So now let's move our animation all the way to frame 24. Now let's move our cube over to this side. And then again, Translate Z, make sure it's selected, right click, key selected. So now we just told Maya at frame 24, we want our Translate Z value to be this. So now if we rewind and hit play, well, let me change my render settings real quick. Change it to play once. Up. Once. Save. Alright. And all I did was I clicked on this little button down here at the bottom right. It says Animation Preferences, and it'll take you right to that spot. Alright, so now we have a little animation here. It's 24 frames. So we can go to our render settings and to our common tab, and we can change the name that we want these images to be saved as. We can change the format. We can change the how we want it to be saved. And usually you want this name.pound.extension. Keep that in mind right there, name.pound.extension. Here's our start and end frames. But we can do all this inside that notepad. You can do it here, or you can also do it in that notepad. So let's go ahead and close this out. Let's open up our, looks like we got several of these open. Okay, I'm going to close out Maya. Don't save. Not gonna, oh, okay, we had an animation there, but that's okay. I'll leave it like it is. I'm not going to redo that. Let's go ahead and edit our primitive renders. Right click, edit. Let's make sure I don't have anything saved in the images subfolder. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Let's say we did that cube, we're an animation, 24 frames. So let's do some settings here. Let's say if we wanted to render out, let's say we want to render out with mental ray. Let's say it's a mental ray rendering. So I'm going to type in -R. So if you look over here in our command, up here at the top, -render uses specific render. So we can choose what render by typing -renderer, or in short, we can type -R, which is just the same thing as -render. So you can type -R space, and then we want to render out using mental ray. So MR for mental ray space. Let's say we want to start in frame. So if we look over here, our starting frame and end frame, we can choose those with our -S and -E. So -S, start frame is going to be 1, space, -E, space, and then our end frame is going to be 24. So we're going to render out 24 frames. Okay, let's see. Let's choose the format. Let's look over here, and we should have right here file name convention. So F-FNC -FNC space, and then we're going to type in name dot pound dot ext space let's put this, let's see, let's save it as JPEGs, or let's save it as, let's play it as PNG files. So we'll do -OF like we did before, but this time we'll type in PNG for a PNG file. That way it'll hold transparency or other information. And let's see, let's also change the image, the name. Let's say we want to save these images as, let's say we want to save them as cube animation. So over here we've got -IM, allows us to change the image file output name, -IM. So let's type in -IM space cube animation space, and let's say anything else we want to change. Let's say we want to change the size to make sure this is going to render out at 640 by 480. So we can type in -X space 640 space -Y space 480. So now it's going to be 640 by 480 rendering. The only thing we need to do now is tell it to what file we want. And this is going to be our square. So square.mb. Alright, let's look at this one more time. -R allows us to choose which renderer, and we're going to render it with Mendelray. -S allows us to choose a start frame. -E allows us to choose an end frame. -FNC allows us to choose the format, or what did it call it over here, the naming convention. The -OF allows us to choose the output format, which is, we're going to save it as a PNG file. -IM allows us to set the image format name, so we're changing it to cube animation. -X allows us to choose the X resolution. -Y allows us to choose the Y resolution, and then at the very right we put our image of what we want to render. And now we're ready to render it. So let's just type in. Now the reason why it knows this is because we don't have anything with a dash in front of it. So it's going to look at this and it's going to say render. Okay, we're going to render something, and then it sees a dash. So it knows it's going to set some kind of setting, some kind of parameter. So it looks at the R and says, oh, okay, we're going to set the rendering parameter. What are we setting it to? We're setting it to Mendelray. Oh, another dash. That means we want to set something else. What are we setting? We're setting the start frame. Oh, what are we setting it to? 1. So that's basically what that's doing there. And then it gets all the way down to here and it says, it gets to this one here, it says, oh, okay, a dash. We're going to change some kind of parameter. We're changing the Y value, the Y resolution. We're changing it to 480. Oh, no more dashes. So it knows it's going to render, now it knows it's going to render this file, and it's going to render it with all these settings. Alright, file, save, and let's render it out. Let's go ahead and minimize everything, or we just close everything out. And let's render it out. Just open it up. We can look in here. Now, if you want to stop a rendering, let's say you start a rendering and you want to stop it, you can stop it by pressing Control and then the letter C. And now you can see down here, terminate batch render job, yes or no. And I don't want to, so I'm just going to type in N for no. If you wanted to stop it, you would type in Y for yes. So I'm going to type in N because I don't want to cancel it, and then enter. And now it will continue on with the rendering. You can see when I stopped it, it had the first 12 rendered out, or at least the first 11 of it rendered out. And actually it looks like it might have stopped it. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and select all these and go and delete them. And let's just redo this and let it continue out the full 24 frames this time. Alright, there we go. They're all PNG files. Alright, and you can see now it's named the cubeanimation.1.png. So they're all PNG files, but it also put all the numbers on there. And one thing we didn't do is, if you look at this, it's there's no padding, so cube animation 1 all the way to 24, so it might think that cube animation.24 might come before cube animation.9, since 9 is after that first digit too. So usually you want to use frame padding. So let's go ahead and redo this one last time. So edit and padding, let's see what that is. Let's open up our command prompt. Let's type in render space -h. And I'm looking for the padding, which should be up here towards the top. Right here, pad -pad. It's the number of digits in the output image file name. So let's type in, let's insert, doesn't matter where you put it in, we can type in -pad2. So now it's file, save. Let's re-render this out. Okay, I had a space in between dash, so let's put that back. File, save, and try it again. Alright, there we go. What that pad's going to do is, instead of naming it .1, it's going to name it .01. It's going to make sure it has 2 digits. Alright, there we go. So now, if you were to take these images into some other program, like After Effects or Combustion or something like that, there's no mistake of which comes first, .09 or .24. Alright, so I hope that was easy to understand and that you can now do some batch renderings a little more efficiently. So let's edit this one more time. So if you wanted to, you could, let's copy this. And let's say we had different cameras. You can actually specify your cameras. So let's go back in our command prompt, let's type in render space -h. And I already know it's -CAM. But if we look up here, let me make this bigger so I can find it a little bit easier. Alright, here we go, -CAM, specify which camera to be rendered. So if you had several cameras, then you can come in here and you could type in -CAM space camera 1, if you had a camera named camera 1, and then you could say render this out for frames 1 through 24, or let's say this one was frames 25 through frame 35, and then this first one was -cam camera 2. So if you did something like this, basically you're going to render out frames 1 through 24 with camera 2, and then it's going to render out frames 25 through 35 with camera 1. So you come inside here in Notepad and you can set your renders up any way you want to. And then once you execute this, it's going to render everything out. And again, if you ever need to stop it, just Control-C when that window's open, and and then it gives you the option to stop it. All right, thanks for watching.